Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and once again, you're stuck with me in the driver's seat for today's show as we learn how to stop chasing paychecks and how to start building a business we can be proud of. And we do that by asking some of the most successful people in business how they've achieved the success they've been able to acquire. We have a great show for you today because we have a great guest in Mr. Andy Reid. Andy, thank you so much for being with us.
Man, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be over in the US.
Yeah, no, it's not a bad place to be. Andy, before we go there, obviously you're from Australia. Why don't you tell our folks, one, where you are in Australia, and two, what it is you do?
Okay, cool. So I'm actually born in England and actually emigrated to Australia in 2010. I'm based in Melbourne, so down towards the bottom end of Australia, where the common knowledge is it's 4 seasons in one day. But I swear, whether you call it global warming or whatever is to blame, it's like 5 seasons in 20 minutes right now, which is pretty mad. I'm a success coach, speaker, podcast host, published author, and my main love, which would be prominent for your listeners, is that I have a real estate auctioneering firm down here in Melbourne. So, real estate auctioneering is. We are seen as, statistically, volume-wise and all the rest of it, the capital of the world when it comes to the auctioneering property. It is a very, very prominent way of selling property for any type. So it's not just distressed or mortgage or anything like that. It's a very, very prominent method of sale down here in Australia. And it's theatre, man. It's real theatre, and I love it to bits. So yeah, I've been fortunate. I got named the number one auctioneer in Australia in 2022. I put it down to my big mouth and an accent, man. I mean, it covers up all sorts of inadequacies, Josh. I tell you. But yeah, man, I was in real estate sales for a number of years prior to that, doing sort of 60 to 90 transactions a year. But as I'm sure you can appreciate, Josh, right? When you find what you're supposed to do in life, and I've always been told I was loud.
Yeah.
You kind of got to roll with it, right?
Let's go into that. I mean, I'm a natural. So is that how you got your start? I mean, that seems like such an unusual place to wind up. How did you wind up? I mean, I know real estate is like you go in thinking you're going to do one thing, and you sort of like wind up. The tide takes you to kind of where you find yourself. How did you wind up there?
So really, I wasn't really, as a lot of people would find, you're not supposed to be in real estate. A lot of the time, you just end up in it, right? And I ran bars and restaurants and hotels back in the UK. And when I moved over to Australia to be with the mother of my kids, her father owned a franchise of a real estate office, and I was about to go work for some telecommunications crew in customer service, and he hit me up and said, "Hey, Andy, I think you'll be a good real estate agent." I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a crack, and if I'm rubbish, you can bin me, and no one, no hard feelings." And then 2 years after that, he threw me an authority and said, "Andy, you're running an auction." And I looked at him and was like, "Okay, cool. I just thought I was running the buys." And he looks at me and he goes, "You don't get it, do you?" I went, "Well, what is there to get?" And he goes, "You're calling the auction, man." I was like, "Oh, shit." So I had 2 weeks notice to get my shit together in terms of understanding the auctioneering calling game, and fell in love with it. And then from there, it just became an obsession real fast. And I had to make a decision because of demand, thankfully, in 2018 to either go down the sales path and stay in the sales path, or follow my passion, follow my love, which I did, and I'm super grateful that I did.
So what's the secret sauce to auction calling?
I
mean, if somebody's thinking about it, like I've seen auctions done, right? But like I've never understood why the calling is done the way that it is. And I've always said, like if I ever found somebody that really knew it, like maybe they could tell me because I'm genuinely curious.
Honestly, man, it's very different down here than it is in the US. And actually, there's a very prominent auctioneer on the West Coast in Los Angeles, I think he is, called Ben Brady, who got flown over by the Harcourts brand from Australia to start
Mhm.
running an auction division in the bottom left of the US. And really, for me, the psychology is more important than the numbers,
Okay.
and which is fascinating. So I'm a huge geek, mate. I am a huge geek, self-confessed. Don't care. I love being a geek. And my parents back in the day, my parents both police officers, so they taught me from primary school age to learn how to read what was going on right on the playground, right? Because they
Yep.
were always
Body
getting school
language.
human lie detectors. I got away with jack shit,
Yep.
which was so painful. But in the auctioneering world, it allows me to see what is actually going on with a purchaser over one side of the room, with a purchaser over the other side of the room. I can read the play between husband and wife that are tossing up whether to make another bid or anything like that. In Australia, because we've got so many first generation immigrants, it's still such a ridiculously young country.
Mm.
There's lots of different languages going on, right? So it freaks them out when you can understand what they're saying without being able to understand their language, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
They think it's a private conversation.
exactly. And then when I say to them, no, I'm not taking your 5K, they look at you like all freaked out as if you understand sort of Mandarin or Hindi or whichever language it is, right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And the really, really cool thing about it is, and this is going to sound really mercenary of me, Josh, but I get paid to play with people's emotions.
Sure.
And I get paid to push them emotional triggers that force them to do more, because ultimately my employer is the seller, is the
Oh,
home seller, and my job's to
absolutely.
maximize the value of the asset. So that's what I
Absolutely.
do.
This is overwhelmingly in the Realtor Code of Ethics in the United States of America. They have like these categories, right?
Yep.
Category number one, responsibility to your customer. Like I'm supposed to treat everybody fairly, but I'm
Yep.
supposed to look after my customer. You have a responsibility to, they brought you in to be the best you could be for them. If
Hmm.
these folks want to come in unrepresented and throw themselves at a professional, I'm sorry, if you step in the ring with a professional fighter, prepared to get punched in the face. You know what I mean? And so I think that's awesome, man. And it's such an interesting culture. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but it does make me very curious how the laws must be different there, that it makes it advantageous to pursue the auction model
Yeah.
versus more of a traditional sale. But that's fascinating. What do you like best about it, Andy?
It's weird, right? So a lot of people tend to believe, or they just have this assumption that that the craft of auctioneering is designed for the egos, right? It's designed for the ones that are all me, and love the spotlight and all the rest of it. I actually get a sense of freedom from calling an auction because it's my flow state, right? It's my place of flow. It's my happy place. Everybody else is feeling pressure and chaos, and I've got sunsets and sandy beaches going on in between my ears, man.
Yeah,
I'm not just like doing a little I'm just like humming along to myself in my head as I'm rocking and rolling. And it's the sense of freedom that I get from being the least important person in the transaction. So I'm the focal point, but for me, you've got a home seller whose biggest asset is on the line, the buyers whose next biggest chapter in their lives is about to take place, or not if they get beat. And I represent other real estate agents and firms, so they hire me in to come and represent them on the street, and it's a very public billboard for those guys. So it's their brand reputation on the line as well. It's not just the commission check; it's their
yeah.
brand and their reputation. And it's not that deal, it's the next 7 deals with neighbors and all that watching, right? So I've got to make them look good irrespective of the outcome. And so little old me, I just go shouting the houses down and have a heap of fun doing it, man.
I love it, man. So where do you think the success came from? That's why you love it, but where does the
Mm.
success come from for you?
Um, the success came from, and auctioneering really cracked it open for me, Josh. It allowed me to get an insight as to my true identity, right? And I find that in order to be able to define what success is for you as a human being, you need to first understand who the hell you are. And I was brought up in an environment that was very conformist. My parents were amazing, don't get me wrong, but they were very conformist because of the nature of what they did, right? They were part of a system in the police force, right? So
Sure.
therefore conformity was standard. And so it took me a long time and a bit of a mental health breakdown to realize that I didn't know who I was. And it was auctioneering that made me so happy because it's such a spontaneous environment. You got no time to think. Therefore, you've got no time to apply filters that don't belong to you,
No
right?
time for no time for a mental breakdown in between. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. It's just time to rock and roll, right? So, and it just allowed me to feel into who I was. And then from there, I became a student of myself. When you become a student of yourself and you get to understand why you exist, then defining success and what it looks like for you gets real easy, real fast.
Mhm.
It gets really easy, really quickly. But the challenge that a lot of people have with the success is that they're too busy, and it's not their fault, being conditioned by the sheer volume and noise of people talking about what success should be, and it should all be about X, Y, and Z, and fast cars, and tan boobs, and all this sort of stuff, right? When reality is, it's completely different for every single human being. Now, for me, stereotypically, if we were to follow traditional models of success, I should still be in sales. So I was making a shit ton more money, right?
Mhm.
Loads more money. Like
Yep.
it was easy, but I'm a damn sight more successful in the position that I'm in now because not only by being the true version of me, is it allowed me to gain the success that I have gained from being in the space where I'm supposed to be. It's also then extrapolated out even further to the podcast and the book deal and all this sort of stuff, right? So that's where that success has come from, man. Is understanding who the hell I am.
Yeah, yeah, man. And where do you think so? The root of it is understanding yourself. Where do you think the passion that makes you get up and go after it every day? Where does that fuel come from? Where are you trying to get to? What is it that makes you love it?
The interesting thing, a couple of things, right? So the really cool thing about dealing with a people-based business, right? When you're dealing with humans all the time, and all that sort of jazz. Despite AI apparently taking over the world, which it won't, but there is a narrative around that, right?
Yep.
Um, um, I understand. I'm completely content in my own vulnerabilities. One of the critical ones, which is the same for everyone, which is that there's 8 billion people on the planet, and we're never going to be able to get it right every single time. That for
Works.
me, that for me is enough to make me get out of bed and crack on because I'm like, awesome. What am I going to learn today? Who am I going to meet? Who am I going to connect with? Who am I going to speak to that I'm going to learn something new from? Right? I mean, just in the 3-4 minutes that we had we had a chat before we pressed go on this. I learned little bits and bobs about the US market, right? So I've learned something, and it's like 20 past 11 at night here, and I'm still learning stuff. I mean, how cool is
Absolutely.
that, right?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, the world is such a big, beautiful place if you just put yourself in the right position to
Oh,
understand it better. I've said it many times. I say it to my agents when I teach all the time. I say, guys, you got to be willing to pay the most expensive bill in real estate, the one that most agents are unwilling to pay. You got to commit to being willing to pay attention. If you pay
yeah.
attention, there's all kinds of interesting things out there. The place that I've always made money and I've always done well is because I'm paying attention to the things that other people aren't paying attention to. I read that in a book years ago. I
Mm.
pay attention to things that other people. So but the conversation we had was the GDP numbers that came out this morning and talking about labor numbers and things like that, because those are all the instigating factors that go into the decision that they're going to make us regards interest rates. So
Mm.
I have my competitors are out there talking about what interest rates have done. I'm talking about what interest rates are going to be doing. In other words, how to anticipate to try to make the right decision now that's going to pay off well in the future. Because in anticipating, I've learned from paying attention, customers don't care about where we are, they care about where we're going. That's what they're buying. When they buy real estate, they're not buying where it is, they're buying where it's going. They own the where it's going. So, what does the where it's going look like? Like
Oh,
it's telling them what they're actually buying.
big time, man. And if we're to hook a carriage onto that one, right? And it's not just a case of understanding where we are going. It's having the ability to be able to to be able to gain the knowledge to know where you're going, and then be able to interpret it to a consumer market that is so heavily driven by the media, not by
Yep.
reality, but by the media, that if we can't command a level of authority via the depth of knowledge that we have beyond the superficial, if we
Yep.
just pander to their headlines, which is what the majority of real estate agents unfortunately tend to do, then all it turns into is an opinion-based game that you're never gonna win. So, like, having that ability to pay attention to the stuff that is actually going to make an influential impact on the marketplace, and therefore is going to get broadcast out by the media. Or, so for example, down here in Australia, right, they really pander to the media. They really pander to the clearance rates, so the auction success rates, right, because of obviously how much more prominent it is in the public eye down here, right? And the thing is, like, aside from being just a general, very generic macro overview of the market in terms of its appetite, it provides very little substance to Joe Consumer at a singular level. However, because realtors and real estate agents don't see the importance of understanding the actual economic impacts of X, Y, and Z, and why this is doing this and that's doing that, you're not going to be able to provide any proper, tangible credibility beyond the superficial. And so paying attention, you're absolutely spot on, man. Paying attention is so critical, because otherwise, how can you be credible?
That's it. I mean, winning that, I've always said negotiation number one with your customer is the negotiation for credibility. If not, you're going to fight with them about your compensation. You're going to fight everything that you say for them to do. They're going to take and say, well, I read this, I saw that. I need to take and win the case that I am the best source of information, because I don't only have the information, I have the context that shows them how that information should be used. Like, so you get all kinds of, there's a famous saying, I've said it on this podcast a few times, but it's apropos. Mark Twain once said, there's three types of lies, damned lies, and statistics. Statistics are great, except that you always have to ask what's being left out. What comes in and mitigates this? So like you're talking about your clearance rates. Yeah, but once you calculate this and you take this out that obviously shouldn't be there, all of a sudden it says something completely different. But you have to understand the thing well enough and be able to explain why the thing does or doesn't belong, because we have a weird product in real estate. And it's weird because it's got certain benefits and certain downside. The big downside with real estate for me has always been lack of liquidity, right? It's an illiquid asset. It's hard to turn it to liquid. You need time. If I have General Electric stock, I could sell it today. I could have cash in my bank. If I have real estate, I could 50 million in real estate. If I need $10 to buy lunch, I don't have a way to turn the 50 million in real estate into the $10 I need for a sandwich today, right? That's the thing. And so I think that ties in with the other problem that real estate has, which is that valuation is less clear. And this is kind of where I kind of hooked up with this idea, Andy. If I bring in 10 appraisers to appraise the same property, I will get 10 different values. Like if I don't hand them a contract and say, hey, here's the contract, can you go give me, if I have a contract, usually it'll be around the contract price, hopefully, right? But 10 appraisers, 10 different valuations. So whose valuation is right? Well, when you really look at it, it's the person who could ground their valuation to the best facts. I use these properties as my comparables because these things make these better than these other properties. And so grounding, the idea of grounding your ideas, I learned that in valuation and I just carried it to everything else that goes on. Like, can I ground what I'm saying? Agents say crap all the time, but can they ground it factually to something that's tangible, that's there, that we could talk about and make a compelling case to win that negotiation for credibility? That's kind of how I think about it. I don't know if that jives for you.
Look, man, you're very much preaching to the converted here. The way that so when I'm doing some coaching down here in the real estate landscape, I often apply a little bit of bro science and say, right, there are three types of agents. There are what agents, how agents, and why agents, right? 80%, the majority of professionals in the real estate space, in the realty space, deal in the what, i.e., they just regurgitate what is happening, what they need, what needs to happen in order to bring a real, we take pictures, we do this, we put it onto the internet, and da 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 da. We bring
Yep.
buyers through, and then we negotiate the best price because we're the best, blah blah blah, right? The how agents are the ones that can take the theory and then look to apply it to the situation at hand, right? So they've got that next level depth of understanding beyond the superficial. And that's
Right.
like your next 15% of agents, right? So, for example, being able to help a consumer understand the importance of internet marketing, because majority of inquiry comes from online, and
Yep.
the way the internet marketing works, it acts as a sales funnel. So you need to get volume of clicks, which is why you need the maximum amount of exposure, blah, 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 blah. Applying the theory to the situation. The elite, though, the elite agents are the why agents, and they are the ones that can bring it all into a context based on the original reason as to why the person was selling in the first place. No one just wakes up and decides that they need to sell, right?
Yep.
They've always got a greater reason. And to be able to take knowledge and provide relatability to that credibility to the consumer, then they are the elite. They are the best of the best. When any recommendation is underpinned by that original purpose for that person looking to sell in the first place. And it ties in completely with what you were saying there, in that there is no point being able to just regurgitate numbers if you can't provide the knowledge behind it that creates a connection that the consumer can relate to personally.
Yeah, no, I like that. I break it down a little bit different way. My big three things are rapport, credibility, and trust. Rapport being the least important. Rapport being that they like you, but that's kind of like your what agent. Hey, you like me, and I do all the things I'm supposed to do. I check the boxes. Your how agent, credibility, they know how to do it. All right, but that third one, the trust, is the other people believe this is a person that not only knows how to, but will look out for me because they understand what's going on. They understand my piece of it as well. There's that synergistic piece that comes on where this is a person that's now working, because anytime you're in a sales position, nobody wants to get sold to. In real estate, we're in sales. You say salesperson, if there was one of those like off bug sprays you could put on to keep salespeople away, most people would be all over buying Case. It'd be the most popular product in the world. Keep salespeople away. And so I'm coming in as a salesperson. How do I take and get this person to not only respect me? You have to have you have to have respect to have a good relationship, right? Any relationship without respect is problematic. But if I can get this person to like me, if I can get them to believe in their soul that I know what the hell I'm doing, and that I am looking out for them like their family, if I can do those three things, well, that customer's not looking for another agent. And see, that's the problem. In my world, Andy, in this country, we have a 12% customer retention rate in my industry. They use an agent, 88%. I bet you if you check yours, you'd be shocked at how bad the number is as well. Customer turnover is so stinking high. They use you, they see everything that you do, and next time they're like, I could do better, and they try somebody else. I don't know. That's when I go out on a date, that's not how I like it to work, like after I go out, I want a second date,
Right. So here's something that I want to pose to you, man. This is something I've been marinating on for a bit. I'm starting to sort of broadcast a little bit more down here. I've got this growing belief. You know how we're talking about relationships and whatnot? I actually feel, I was starting to think that our complete focus on relationships is actually taking away from our credibility, in starting to actually pull us away from that credibility piece. And we end up becoming more like counselors and less like doctors, right? So, and essentially, a homeowner's not going to ask us to come and appraise their home because they want a new friend. Like, no, they don't need any friends, right?
I love it.
They don't need any more friends, right? They have a problem and they want someone to provide the solution, right? Now, the difference between a lot of agents, they will go in and they'll be so focused on building they'll focus on the rapport bit, or wanting to be liked, that they'll lose sight of the need to be credible, right? And then they'll get that age old saying of, "Oh, we really liked you, but," or
Yep.
"Next time we'll go with you, but this time we just felt that," right?
Yep.
And so I've got a concern that the real estate space across any sort of Western country is we are running the risk of becoming more like counselors and less like the doctors that our consumers are wanting us to be primarily. What's your thoughts on that, man?
Andy, you are preaching to the choir. I say that one of the most important things when you have a customer is to anticipate the customer. Like, I need to know, I need to think through them. And so to me, there's anticipate, empathy. If I was them, how would I feel in this situation? And then step 3, pre-negotiate. I am going to negotiate the things that I can anticipate are going to come up in advance. So what brings them to me? Is it loneliness? Is my customer coming to me because they're lonely? Were they sitting there on the couch with a big bowl of popcorn watching Netflix on a Friday evening thinking, man, I'm lonely, I'll call a real estate agent? That's not the thought process, right? A problem is what brings them to me. So I'm not going to come in there showing them what a great friend I could be because I'm missing the target. I'm going to come in and show them that I have spent years honing myself into being the best problem solver for the specific problem before I even met them that I anticipated they're going to have. That's my integrity. You guys haven't even met me, but before I met you, I have spent years making sure that the problem that you have is what I have been honing myself to be able to handle in the best possible way for you. I feel like that's actually meeting them where they're at rather than coming and saying, oh, you do ballet? My daughter did ballet. Oh my, I love the millions on the windows. It makes me throw up in my mouth just a little bit when I hear.
Yeah, a little bit, man. And added to that, right? You talk about the anticipation bit, right? It's not just around anticipating what they're going through. It's also anticipating how they are going to be skeptical. What is making them nervous and therefore getting their safety barriers up and bloody firing in their brain. And I kind of relate it to that Eminem film, 8 Mile, right? In the last rap battle, where instead of going on the offensive, trying to take the mickey out of Anthony Mackie, all he does is he anticipates what Mackie's gonna rap about, and then raps it himself, leaving Mackie with sod all to say.
With nothing to say, absolutely. Get out in front of this son of a bitch, and let's see what you got left. When I teach negotiation, Andy, I love that. I call it unloading the gun. I assume what bullets they've got. I take them out of their gun. They pick their gun up, click, click, click. They're empty because I already expended all their ammunition. I dealt with it in advance. The way to go. Gotta love it, man.
Big time. Big time.
So, Andy, I want to ask you, because any entrepreneur, anybody that's achieved success, always has to go through adversity, always has to go through hard times. So how do you manage yourself, Andy, when things don't go the way they're supposed to?
It depends on whether I've made decisions based on my heart or my head, right? And so if it's a decision that I've made for my business that was made with my heart, so my gut instinct, then I generally find that it's much easier to then be able to find the lessons in that defeat, right? And then it makes it worthwhile, right? Could be an expensive lesson, but it is what it is, right? But it's always been the case for me, and you tell me if you disagree here, Josh. Any decision that I've made with my head against what my gut is saying, but my head is saying that intelligence would suggest that this is the way to go, they are the only decisions that have led to any form of regret in any way, shape, or form, right? It's always the heart leads to lessons, the head leads to regret. And so therefore, if it's a mistake made through the head, I take a look at myself in the mirror and go, you knew that was going to happen, dickhead. And then work it out. But if it's a lesson, if it's a mistake that's been made through a gut decision, then it's so much easier to accept it for what it is, learn the lesson, and crack on, because at least you felt like it was the right thing to do at the time.
Yeah. I get that, man. Some of the worst business decisions I've made are ones where I went with my head instead of my gut.
Yeah,
And, like I had a bad feeling about that guy. Why did we move forward? You
yeah,
know? And it sucks because, it's so hard to build up. You build up and then you have these setbacks, and it's, that Rudyard Kipling line of if you could bend down and pick up the broken pieces without complaining about it and just keep moving on. That's a very
yeah,
big paraphrase right there.
yeah,
But yeah, what it takes to take and get those setbacks and then stand back up and go again. It's not easy.
No,
So
it's not, man. It's not, and I think the critical piece to it is instead of denying that it's painful. I hate the whole phrase of you got it. When people say, "Oh, I eat rejection for breakfast," I love rejection and all this. I'm sorry if you're eating rejection for breakfast, you got a pretty fucking shitty breakfast. Let's be honest,
yeah,
right? It doesn't taste. I'd rather have my pancakes and syrup and all that stuff. It tastes way better.
yeah.
Like a defeat, a loss, a rejection. It's supposed to hurt, right? Accepting that it hurts allows you to see the lesson for what it is, right? If all you do is take that line and go, right, I'm just going to keep getting no until I get a yes, then you'll become a slave to the game because you're not learning why you're getting the no's, and therefore you're not
Yep.
increasing your probability of getting a bloody yes. Because apparently some idiot said that eat rejection for breakfast, it's amazing. No, it's not. It's bullshit. I would
Yep.
much rather learn some stuff that's going to help me increase my probability of getting more yeses, right?
Totally agree.
So, yeah, man, sometimes ego gets in the way of learning.
Absolutely. So, got to go a little bit of a lightning round here because I know it's late for you and I got crap going too. So,
All good, man.
what do you see as the opportunity in the market today, Andy? What's the thing that's got you excited?
From a professional point of view, hard markets let the cream rise to the top. So
Okay.
if you find yourself whinging about market conditions, it's probably because you're not one of the cream, right? It's probably
Yeah.
because you've not got the skills or the drive or the ambition or all three, to actually make the most of it. Hard situations create the greatest opportunities. And when you're in a challenging market where it's all topsy turvy and you've got someone with a ridiculous tan making decisions and then changing them every 5 minutes, right, and affecting the world economy, like you've got an opportunity to see these stormy seas and be the lighthouse as opposed to the sinking ship, which
Good
is really
stuff.
cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, that does make sense. And so being what the market needs rather than just complaining about the market that we find ourselves in.
If
I,
it was
I,
easy, everybody'd be doing it, man.
That's right. That let it thin the herd. There'll be more opportunities for the rest of us that manage to figure out how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the most important thing you've learned in the process of what you've done?
Vulnerability is the key to true professionalism. What I
Okay.
mean by that, I used to, when I was a listing agent, I'd win more business off the back of saying things like, right, before we go through the different methods of sale, what we all need to understand here is that there is no such thing as a guarantee in any of this, right? So now that we can let go, or by me saying that, I've already taken out 3 agents because they've gone, I guarantee I'll get you this. I'll guarantee I'll get you
Yep.
that. There's no such thing as a guarantee, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. What I'm going to do is look at increasing the probability of getting the best outcome possible via X, Y, and Z, right? So
Absolutely.
by understanding your vulnerabilities, it allows you to show a level of professionalism that just absolutely obliterates your competitors.
Absolutely, because they're so super. It's their insecurity comes through in the fact that they can't admit that it's anything less than perfection. Coming in and disqualifying the other agents, I think by just saying, "Here's how you know what a bad one looks like,"
No,
and you go through that list of he. I always just give it advice. Say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let me just take it and try to help you to understand how this whole thing works. If when we're done, you choose to work with me, great. My goal, though, is to make sure there's a lot of bad actors out there. By the time I'm done, nobody's going to be able to pull the wool over your eyes, right? So you're going to know how this whole thing works. If you want to work with me, that's great. If not, I understand. I'm not a fit for it. Not everybody likes me. Sometimes I don't even like me. But if you want to take and take a look at this thing, let me show you how this works, right? And then you can sit there and like, there's going to be agents that are going to come in here, Mr. and Mrs. Sell. They will tell you anything in the world to get your business. It's a lie, but they'll say it to you. You know, my mom used to say to me, Josh, be careful what women say. They will say anything to you to get what they want. You know, and I kid around like, you know, that's what usually the moms tell the girls, right? So, I'll say, look, they'll tell you anything to get what they want, right? We know this. Make sure that what they're saying they can back up. So you want to take, and this is what you're looking for. This is how you know whether what they're saying is there. Because I don't decide what somebody pays. The market decides what they're going to pay for the thing. I can't tell the market what to do. I can stimulate the market in the best ways that are tools that are available to me. I can give great picture. I can package it well, but I can't make the market perform. We're trying to get the market to do what we want it to do. If we don't give it the right stimulation, the market will not respond to what we're bringing to the table. So that's condition, that's price, that's all of these things. We're looking for a market reaction. When you sell a property, you're looking for the market to react in the way you want it to. I have to take and provide the market a reason to do what we're asking it to do. If the reason's not good enough, the market won't respond. And so I trying to pre-negotiate away, because there's two reasons that you and I both know. There's two reasons the property doesn't sell. The agent sucks or it's overpriced. That's it. At the right price, everything sells. They think whenever it doesn't sell, whose fault is it? The agent. I'm negotiating it. It's not me. It's the price. And so trying to put that in that position is something I've learned as a tool, as when I go in, that has been very effective to me at trying to take and anticipate that objection and make it about the market, make it about that situation, rather than letting them make it about me.
Oh, big time. On that price conversation, I refer to the emotional gap, right? So, and so I'll say to Mr. and Mrs. Vendor now, when it comes to trying to work out how how much we're going to be able to get for this asset, we've got to deal with two things, right? Obviously, you want as much as you can get as a vendor, and that's absolutely your prerogative. But put the shoe on the other foot, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor. And now, if you were a buyer, then naturally you're going to want to pay as little as possible. So obviously, there's going to be a gap between the two, and I refer to that as the emotional gap. Now, the logic of the market suggests that the property's at X. How does that compare to what it is you want to achieve? And then, because my job is going to be to work with you to bridge that gap as best as possible and get buyers paying an emotional tax beyond the logical value of the market.
I love that, man. I love that. That's really articulately said, nicely. See, it's because you pay attention to what you do, man. I don't know about you. I'm constantly trying to polish it up and make it better and better and better, how I say it and how I convey it, because that's really where it's at, getting them to understand the value exactly of what we're doing.
And part of the ability to create that trust is to be able to put your knowledge into the consumer's language.
Yeah.
Right. And we are pigs for abbreviating stuff. Right?
Oh my God.
We abbreviate shit and do acronyms for God knows how much stuff, right? And then we just expect our consumers to understand what the hell we're going on about, right?
Absolutely.
So it's like a doctor talking in all the Latin names for all the medicines and all that sort of stuff, right? We're like going, I don't give a shit, mate. Is it going to make me better or what? Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't give a stuff, mate. Is it going to make me feel less shit than what I feel like now? So, and that's how we've got to think as realtors. And that comes back to that doctor versus counselor. Stop trying to be a there. Put the knowledge that you're supposed to have, because you should be paying attention to your game and actually taking yourself seriously and your craft seriously. But then be able to put it into a language that your consumers can bloody well understand, because otherwise there's no point in being there.
Absolutely, man. You are same page on that, 100%. All right, true lightning roundish here. If you had to give our listeners one piece of advice, Andy, what would it be?
In order to be taken seriously, take yourself seriously first.
Love it. One book you'd recommend
Apart from mine,
apart from yours. What
uh,
is yours, by the way? Let's get the title right now. I was going to ask you
it's
before,
called
but
Success. It's called Success Curious, right? And
okay.
it's based. It is the precursor to any professional or personal development, right? So I basically strip it right back and take it back to before you can start to go on this path of success, whatever that looks like. You got to understand who the hell you are first.
Yeah.
So it really strips it back to basic essentials. I wish my best mate had told me that before I did all the PR for it, that it's the book that you're supposed to read before you read any other personal development book. And I said, "You're a dickhead. Why the hell didn't you tell me that before I spent all this money on PR?" Anyway, so bastard. So but take it in order. So a book, at the minute, I mean, I always keep going back to Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I
Yeah.
keep going
Good book.
back to it. One book though, let me just get the title of it right though. One book that I'm really into at the minute though. Bear with me 2 seconds. Um, there's one called Nate Silver on the Edge. That one there is called The Art of Risking Everything, and it's about game theory.
Okay.
So yeah, so I don't know about you, but I'm into I like playing poker and things like that. But the understanding of game theory is really really cool in that, really cool, and he relates it to some of his because he was a professional poker player, and then he's become a chief economist, he's become a massive political commentator as well. Really really cool that one.
All right. Favorite movie of all time?
I was obsessed with the Matrix for a long time, but
Okay.
not because of the tin hat theories, but because I just like the fighting, and I wanted to
That's
be.
fine.
But if I'm being honest, Top Gun, it was always a big one for me. That was always a big one. Proper American shit like that is what I was into massively. But I'm
Yeah.
also a big Guy Ritchie fan. So the London gangster movies like Snatch and The Gentleman and films like that, I'm into that as well.
All right. Famous person in history you'd want to meet if you could.
Churchill, because I'm British.
Okay.
So Winston Churchill, one of my favorite sayings of all time is his very, very famous one where he says, "Success isn't final, failure is not fatal, it's the courage to the continue that counts."
Yeah.
That is one of the best all time quotes for me. So I'd love to meet Churchill. Apparently he was an arsehole, but I'm sure he'd be awesome to chat to.
Probably would be. All right. What person from your past would you want to sit down with and have lunch with today if you could?
My dad. My
Yeah, me
dad, who
too.
unfortunately passed away in 2020, and I never got a chance to ask him if he was satisfied. Right?
Mm.
I've always had this problem with satisfaction, man. In that we're always chasing satisfaction, but Alan Watts, and that's another guy I'd love to sit down with. Actually, he's probably more than Churchill. Alan Watts, British philosopher, and he talks about linguistically how we're always saying that we're always trying to chase that or there. Right? We're always saying things like, "Oh, we'll get there," but the problem is, by the time you get there, it becomes here. So do you ever really get there? And I've always been trying to chase satisfaction. And I only learned it when I was listening to my dad when he was on his deathbed and all I could hear him was breathing. He had a stroke, so he lost the chance to speak.
Oh,
And
geez.
it was only then that I realized that he was only ever going to know if he was satisfied with his body of work by the time that he got to the end of it. Because while you've got time, there's always time to change the result, right?
Yeah.
Well, you've still got more down, to put it into an American football analogy. Like, what if there's still time on the clock? You've always got a chance to score a touchdown, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, less chasing satisfaction. I'd love to chat to my dad and ask him that.
Yeah. Were you happy? That's a great question, man. I think about sitting down with my dad all the time, and just seeing what he think of where I am, and ask him some questions that I was too dumb to ask.
Hmm.
Back when. Well, Andy, I want to ask you, where can people find you? I had really enjoyed this conversation. Where, if people wanted more Andy, where do they go?
I'm a pretty easy guy to find because, as with my physical existence. I'm a pretty loud guy everywhere. So, so you can catch me on Instagram at Andy Reid Coaching, LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn/Andy Reid Coaching. My book Success Curious is available on Amazon in the US and Canada. So you can just Google Success Curious Andy Reid and it will pop up on Amazon pretty quickly. Yeah, man. And my website, andyreid.com.au. Keep it simple, man. I love simple. Simple's awesome.
I'm a fan of simple myself. Andy,
Really?
I genuinely enjoyed this conversation so much. I wish I had more time to talk to you. I know it's late there. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, look, it's been an absolute joy to be with you, Josh. It really, really has. And we'll have to get you to return serve and come say hello to us Aussies down here.
Love to do it, my friend. Love to do it. And I want to thank our listeners for spending their time with us. Guys, I remind you every time, there's never a good excuse not to know your shit. Till next time.